Landon said that he wanted to be at home and take care of household chores because he really hated his job and thought it was a waste of time. I thought it was a pretty big decision to make, but as long as he was fine with it, I was fine with it as well. It was a mutual decision, and we have been sticking to that for the past 8 years. My father retired almost 6 years ago, and since then, I have been the CEO of our company. I don't mean to brag, but I make a lot of money. My husband is happy, and so am I. I don't really understand why anybody else would have a problem with it, but for some reason, my in-laws just assumed that he was the primary breadwinner of the family. To be fair, we had never really told them about our situation, but honestly, that was just because my in-laws are very old school and orthodox, and Landon knew for a fact that if they got to know that he was a house husband and was not actually working, they would completely lose their minds. He said that he did not want to go through the trouble of telling them the truth, so we had never told them about the situation, and they didn't actually know that he had not been working for the past 8 years. Whenever we met them, we would pretend that he was still working at his previous company, but we did not get into the details of it and would change the topic as soon as it came up because we did not think it was important enough to be discussed. That way, we were able to avoid a lot of awkward discussions and unnecessary conversations, and we were happy that way. On top of that, they already did not like me by the time Landon and I got married, so I did not want to make things worse for myself by telling them the truth about our marriage, that he stayed at home and took care of our household while I was the one who worked and brought home the money. Now, a lot of you might be wondering why I still tried to get along with them and kept in touch with them, even though it was very clear that they didn't like me. Even Landon has apologized to me for all of this several times, but there was just no way that we could cut them out of our lives permanently, and that's because my mother-in-law, Sheila, is a cancer survivor and has had to battle 2 types of cancer in the past 8 years. First, she was diagnosed with skin cancer, and then, a couple of years later, with brain cancer. She's a very lucky lady who has survived both and is in remission as of now. But after she has been through so much, we just couldn't find it in ourselves to cut them off. If that was not bad enough, my father-in-law, Bob, has had 2 heart attacks in the past 4 years. So, I guess you guys can understand the position that we were in and why we could not cut them out of our lives in spite of their weird behavior around me. I wouldn't say that they were rude or nasty to me like some other in-laws are, but whenever I was around, they were always very cold with me, and it was something that everybody in the room could pick up on. Even when I was dating Landon and met their family for the first time, they had been a bit off, but after we got married, they got even more distant and cold. However, given their condition, I decided to just suck it up and deal with it because I didn't want to be the person who told Landon to cut his parents out of his life just because they were a bit weird around me, and he was extremely thankful to me for it. The real reason I felt really bad for them was because I had lost my mother to cancer a couple of years before I met Landon, so I did not want to make matters worse for them, and I would try to even help them financially whenever I could. Both of them are retired, so they would sometimes ask Landon to help them out with certain expenses that they needed to be covered. Landon did not exactly have any money, so I would be the one who wrote them a check, but I would always make it out to be from both Landon and me because if it was just me, then it would seem a bit suspicious, and we didn't want them to be able to figure out that Landon was not working in the past 8 years. Every event that they have had, every vacation that they have taken, every fancy thing that they have ever done has been thanks to me. So, I would think that they would be a little thankful because, even though, according to them, it was both Landon and me contributing to their finances, I still believe that if I was part of it, then I deserved a bit of appreciation. But I never had any luck with them, and recently, I even organized their anniversary party for them to celebrate their 40th year of marriage. Of course, according to them, it was both Landon and I who organized the entire thing, but I was still a part of it, so I thought that they would be thankful to me. However, at the party, they decided to make a speech, and it was a particularly nasty one, and I think after that, there's no going back to having a relationship with them. In retaliation, I cleared up certain things that I think were long overdue. Anyway, as soon as we showed up at the party, Landon's parents started acting weird almost immediately. I could not figure it out at the time, but when they were making the speech, I realized that it was because of my new car. A couple of weeks ago, I bought a fancy new luxury car for myself. Landon is still driving his old one because he doesn't really go out that much, and if the two of us need to show up anywhere, we get around together in my car. But that day, Landon had shown up at his parents' house in the afternoon, and I had to come by in the evening after work. So, we had come separately, and I had driven my own car there, and I guess that had rubbed Landon's parents the wrong way. When they were asked to make a speech for the anniversary, they said that they were celebrating 40 years of being together, but they also wanted to take the moment to talk about something that had been bothering them. Then they turned to me and started saying that they really did not appreciate the fact that I was mooching off their son for so long, and they wanted to put an end to this. For years, they had not said anything about it because they thought that I would change, but it had been almost 9 years, and it was going to be a decade, and I had not changed my ways. Then they went on to talk about how I had bought a new car, and it was so shameless of me to do so on my husband's money while their son is still driving around an old car. They also said that it was not lost on them that their son dressed so modestly while I was always dressed up in expensive brands from head to toe, which they thought was a very brazen and unnecessary display of my dependence on my husband. They wanted to address this issue publicly because they had stayed quiet for long enough, and now they wanted to make me realize that I was being a gold digger. After that speech, I completely lost it because all the guests were staring at me, and being cold to me was one thing, but humiliating me like that publicly was just not acceptable.